What happens when you push loyalty past its logical conclusion in diplomacy? In this game, I played as Austria and I made a pact with Turkey to stay loyal until we agreed to battle it out. And miraculously, we both held to the deal and parted ways when we were at 14 centers. So this video will show you how a real tactical endgame between two loyalists goes before we go for the solo. This is Legendary Tactics. It's rare that two players both pass on ideal opportunities to stab each other, but that's exactly what happened in this game. I made a video about diplomacy archetypes that describes loyalists as players whose honor is beyond reproach. The link to that video is above. I'll take you through the early and mid game fairly quickly here and point out when and where the stabs likely should have happened. If you hang around until the end, you can see how the tactics played out. So let's move to spring 1901. Openings here are fairly typical. As Austria, I was originally aiming to join forces with Russia, but Turkey set up for the Crimean Crusher here. That made me reconsider. So I opened with the Balkan Gambit, not trusting Italy to stay out of Trieste. I don't love Munich to Tyrolia here, but at least I have a unit in play, so no one can pop into Vennes there. And Italy is heading towards France. That's ideal for me. We move to fall 1901. Turkey's word is good, and the beginning of a strong alliance is forming here. He's hitting Russia's southern flank, and I opted to defend Vienna. England has a strong opening, but Germany gets shut out of the action. France is also looking good here, with two builds and Spain in his pocket. On to winter 1901. I opt for an army in Trieste, not wanting to get involved in the battle for the Mediterranean between Turkey and Italy, and my goal is to keep them fighting. Spring 1902, I decide to push my borders outward, knocking Tyrolia back, entering Galicia, and easing pressure on the Turkish front to show my goodwill there. Fall 1902, I decide to make a play against Italy, suspecting that he was going to attack Tyrolia here. I'm open to an attack from Turkey, but he's got his hands full with Russia and Italy, so I don't think he's a concern right now. England is definitely becoming a problem in the west, though. Winter 1902. So playing as Austria is always complex in the early game since you're completely surrounded, but as long as Turkey and I work together, I should be able to handle my other three fronts here. Spring 1903. I don't want to spend too much time analyzing the early game because the real value in this video comes from a few select moments, but just so you can see how the board evolves, I'll cue up some of the sweet tunes here and just move the game forward until fall 1904. Fall 1904. The fall brings the game's first elimination. Italy elected to take on France, but Turkey and I were hitting Italy from the other side, so we didn't stand a chance. Winter 1904. You can see that Turkey and I are working together, coordinating our units, and reaping the rewards. Spring 1905, the Loyalists tend to benefit, I find, in this game from strong alliances early on. Their main weakness, though, is that a stab is inevitable. Fall 1905. We've eliminated Russia, and in so doing, we've resolved the East. So long as we stay united, England, Germany, and France need to take notice here. And I noticed that Turkey builds a few armies, which suggests that he's starting to think about some defense. Probably a good choice for him. I'm forming a strong line to hold the center of the board from breaking through. Oh yes, the Russian defeat. On to spring 1906. England has taken control of the north and seems to have made up with France. Germany is a newer player here and has somehow let France talk him into giving up his centers. I never know how people do this. If you have any insights on that, let me know in the comments. Fall 1906, with Germany helping France take his centers, which surprised me. As you can see, up until this point, I haven't attacked Germany or supported an attack against Germany. We've been friendly all game long, but France seems to have a silver tongue, so I have to resort to brute force to crack Munich. I now know who's playing France, and he is a phenomenal player. I also know that England is the player who more often than not wins games in this group. So Germany has fallen here. This moves us into the mid portion of the game. So winter 1906, Germany's down. We're down to two powers on each side of the map. However, there's still some tension between England and France as they vie for the lowland centers. Spring 1907. Turkey and I have encroached on Iberia and we're locking down the Mediterranean. Turkey has some armies on his front line, and I'm in a really vulnerable position here with only two units covering my central holdings. So this is where I'm wondering if the stab should have happened. It's fall 1907, and I really do think he should have stabbed me here. He wins Greece and Budapest, one of my home centers. I'm occupied in a conflict with France. I'm heading in the wrong direction. Warsaw would also be his. I left myself completely open. He was at 11 centers and would have launched himself to 14 and put me back to 6. I would have been basically neutered and way out of position. But he didn't stab me. As I promised, this is a loyalist game. So the main motivator here was that he knew I'd throw everything at him. England would come into the Med and the world would unite against him. Also, he would have violated the deal we struck to help each other to 12 before stabbing. But in diplomacy, maybe that doesn't mean too much. Winter 1907. I'm sure you understand how critical the press is at this stage. I can't defend myself from Turkey with units, so it has to be with words and with deeds. I really am on the verge of collapse here, but Turkey knows that if he stabs me, I'm really going to turn and face him, and England will just completely take the game. So if we can stick together just a little bit longer, we'll have enough strength to stop England's solo. Spring 1908, winning our way into the Mediterranean or the Mid-Atlantic Ocean is huge here. If England can block us, then we'll have no option but to turn on each other. So through fall and winter of 1908, we keep chiseling away. Without a huge amount of success there, but it is nice to see France getting knocked back a peg. So spring 1909, at this stage, Turkey begins to suggest plans that I'm not going to support, such as convoying Constantinople into Marseille. This cuts my armies off in France and gives them too much power in the region. So all I can do is misorder my Ionian fleet to break the chain, but still keep the alliance going. So now the tables have turned, and this is where my finger was hovering over the big red stab button ready to nuke Turkey while he was extended too far into the Med. The question is, did I stab him? I did not. Now, fall 1909, logically, the reason this makes sense is, number one, I didn't hear anything from him originally, and I inputted a theoretical set of orders. If I had let them go through, I would have been sitting at 17 centers. I would have taken Romania and Nap from Turkey. I would have blocked him in Greece. In addition, I would have won Belgium and Paris from England and France, respectively, and Turkey would have fallen to 9. But what units would he disband? All I would need for the win is to hold my own against an exclusively naval England and a significantly depleted Turkey. So, everything says I should have stabbed him here, but I didn't stab him. He messaged me, we got talking, and we decided to go past this very logical place of stabbing each other. He did it for me, I'm doing it back for him. And this sets the stage for a tactical heads-up game at the end, with England being reduced down to 6 centers. Let me know in the comments if you think I should have gone ahead with the stab, or if I'm just a complete fool for letting him off the hook here. And if you haven't joined our channel yet, please consider subscribing now. If you're enjoying this diplomacy analysis, stab the like button to help our channel out. We're on to winter of 1909. Turkey was certainly glad that I didn't turn on him here, and I feel like my earlier debt to him has now been repaid. Spring 1910, you can see we're both jockeying to get our units into battle positions. We both know the war is coming, and I'm working to finish off France, or at least to push France into a position to weaken England. Fall 1910, little happens through winter 1901 and spring 1911, but we do manage to defeat France and free up the Mid-Atlantic. I agreed to get Turkey into Brest to bring us both to 14 units, and this is where we shook hands and we agreed that when we got our builds, it would then be fair game to turn on each other. But this is also where I made a massive and almost fatal oversight. So in fall 1910, yes, no, it's not quite here yet, but we move ahead to, yeah, so here we are, and this is where the fatal oversight happens, and this is where I would suggest that our endgame begins. So in fall 1911, I didn't account for Turkey making a move before we got our builds, and you can see that Grecian unit moving up into Albania. That was absolutely fair for him to do, and I didn't block it. I should have likely taken a risk with Serbia to block that, but then again, he could have come into Serbia with Bulgaria, and that would have been a problem. So moving to the Adriatic, he bounced with my Apulian unit there, but while he split into 2 areas of the map, I'm concentrated in the middle. He's got England harrying the mid-Atlantic, and I'm hoping I can hold Central Europe, but all of my ability to hold depends on him not getting into Trieste and Venice, because once he gets behind my lines with an army there, I'm in real trouble and I'm on a defensive here. So if you haven't had a chance to check out my 3-minute puzzle, I'll put the link above. You can vote in the poll as well. And at this point, I ask, if you were to take control of one of the 3 powers left on the map, who would you take? So check out that video and you can make your decision there. We move on to winter 1911. One benefit of the tactical play in the late game, if you haven't played with a Loyalist, is that you get to know their style of play. You see everything they do with their press, you understand their way of thinking, but unfortunately, he gets the same insight into me. So as his opponent, I need to consider that he views me, likely at this point, as a safe, slow, and steady player, but I view him as an offensive player, and so I expect that he'll come at me guns a-blazing. But he's also a very savvy player here, and savvy enough to know that I might vary my play style now that I'm into the end game. Unfortunately, at this point, he does get the better of me for a few turns here, because I wasn't sure if I should double bluff or just go for it. Either way, that army in Albania is not something I want to see. Spring 1912. So this is a huge move here. In the end game, every single order set matters. And this is where I'll do a little bit more in-depth analysis. So feel free to put your own orders in for Turkey if you'd like to try. Imagine you were playing up against me and see if you would outplay me here or not. Let me know in the comments too if you would actually crush my bones. There are lots of different theaters here that I need to consider, and lots of different bluffs and also double bluffs. And this is where it gets really interesting. So take a moment before I advance, figure out what you would do. And clearly both Turkey and I need to appeal on the diplomatic front to England. If he keeps one or the other of us busy or takes centers from us, that'll leave us plumb for the picking. And I went into this as a land-based power, hoping that England would be more inclined to work with me against Turkey, because he would know, as a predominantly army-based country, I wouldn't be able to attack him. It's just something I can't do. So I've offered to help him take Iberia while I focus on the east, but I'm sure Turkey is also imploring him to harass my coastline, which is much closer to his home base too. So we'll have to wait and see who he pairs with, and also who makes the better diplomat here. This game is so up in the air at this point. My main goal is to take at least one more dot from Turkey, and then he gets from me this turn, so I can build back home, where I desperately need one more unit. He stole a march on me in winter 1911, stuck into Albany in preparation for our agreed upon battle after he got his 14th bid. Super smart play. I couldn't risk blocking it there because it would have left an even bigger hole in my lines, and I couldn't have reinforced myself. So he made the right play. He played it smart. The question here is whether I retreat to the Adriatic or let him in, preferring Nap. And I don't think I've ever had such a hard decision and such a decisive set of orders needed as I do at this moment. With 14 units apiece, there are a lot of options. My primary assumptions here are that he'll try for Apulia, thinking that I'll go for the Adriatic. From there, he could attack Nap or Ven and backfill into the Ionian. Secondly, I think he wants to neutralize Trieste, so I can't build any more fleets, and that would also be a powerful move for him. So I think I need to block that. So this is my guiding logic when I'm making my order set. I also think he'll give up St. Petersburg. England gets a build. He moves to Moscow, and he has 3 units to take Warsaw. So I need to prevent that from happening. England builds an army, and then his 2 fleets are now free to harass me, so I'm going to attack Livonia and hopefully pop that army. If England comes through and attacks, then he's going to be in real trouble. He'll have nowhere to go. Fall 1912. Well, could have gone better for me, but it absolutely could have gone much worse. Unfortunately, I lose Serbia, but I knew I would. And sometimes you need to make sacrifices to forestall worse outcomes. So by winning Brest and losing Marseille, I get the build back in Vienna, where I really need more units to hold against 6 Turkish armies. That's a real problem for me. I could have attacked Gascony to eliminate that fleet, but I didn't think I'd be able to hold Marseille long term anyways. I just don't have the power down there. And I'm not going for Tunis at this point because there's no way I can defend that down the line. So I'd much rather hold on to Nap and fall back and consolidate my power. Winter 1912, I get a much needed build back home. Spring 1913. In the late game, the stakes are much higher. Every error and every failure with diplomacy is more costly. England has decided to hold back and see who's winning the war before tossing in with one of us. This is a good option for him, but I need to get into a position in case he starts to harass Holland or Belgium. Berlin's also quite vulnerable. I mean, there are so many leaks in my ship right now. This is not looking good for me. He could just as easily move into the mid-Atlantic and take Portugal or Spain, but I take some serious losses. Nap and Trieste both fall. That is significant. But remember, it's spring, so it's not fatal at this point. I don't make any real gains against Turkey, so fortunately it's not a capture phase. On to fall 1913. I manage here to take back Trieste, and even better, I eliminate that fleet. Every time you can eliminate a unit, especially when it's threatening you that close to home, that is a massive win because it takes forever for him to rebuild and reactivate that unit. So I'm really trying to hold Brest here, but I may need to let that fall because it's tying down 2 units, and I really can't afford to have a fight with England here, so I may need to look magnanimous and give that to him. England's moving in for the kill. Winter 1913. I'm facing a concerted attack from both England and Turkey, so my days in this game appear to be numbered because I can't take both of them on from both sides and win every battle. It just isn't going to happen, so this is where the name of the game comes in. Twilight is near to spring 1914. So Turkey, I can handily say, has outplayed me here up until this point since we entered the end game, and so I decided it's time to change my tactics. Here I give up Brest. I tell England that he can have it whenever he wants. It's a free build for him, and I'm hoping that if he takes it, great, that looks great, and if he doesn't and lets me use my units against Turkey, that's good for him too. So he's got a couple of options there. I'm hoping that Turkey won't let it go for free and that he might actually battle England for it. That frees up Paris now to harry Marseille, and I point out to England that with Turkey at 15 centers, this game could end very quickly if I collapse, or with a couple of bad guesses. So he responds by giving me some breathing room, some much needed breathing room, and he moves into the mid-Atlantic. And one tactic that I really use quite heavily is to eliminate enemy units in the spring, even if it means giving up my positioning. With one less unit to deal with, I often get the advantage I need to win the key battles back when it really matters. And this creates a logjam as my opponent has to rebuild and mobilize that unit all over again. So what I do here is focus on taking out Nap and defending Trieste. Fall 1914. In the fall, I focus on popping another unit in Rome. I don't win Nap here, but I've greatly reduced his presence in the Med, and I've reclaimed the Ionian, which gives me all kinds of options. I also don't attempt to take Marseille because I want his unit to end up there at a position I know he has to defend that, so instead I'm going to fortify against England there, or at least looking like I'm relieving tension, so he'll leave Marseille alone, and then hopefully I can sneak back in and steal that from him when he's committed elsewhere. Winter 1914, Turkey rebuilds his fleets, but there'll be a few turns before they see action. Spring 1915, really interesting how I fought really hard to keep Brest, and I managed to hold on to it, but now that I've given it up, it's diplomacy that actually is keeping it in hand. So landing in Moscow was a great win for me here. It splits his armies and it forces his next play, so I'll know what he has to do. I also got a win by slipping into Nap. So again, he'll force me out or he'll lose Nap, so I have a good sense what 2 more units of his will be doing. It's a bit of a tug of war though, and if you win a center like that, you also need to be able to hold it, otherwise it's completely wasted, which I likely can't do because of his naval power in the Mediterranean. On to fall 1915. This was a huge turn for Turkey. In his shoes, I'd be thinking about a convoy from Greece to Nap, eliminate that unit, and have a strong grasp on Italy. The fleets could come to bear, and then he could push into Greece. He made a gambit here going for Budapest and ended up losing a frontline army, again very costly, and Serbia as well. So this was not a good turn for Turkey, and I'm finally getting a bit of breathing room. When you get this deep into a game, having played closely with Turkey, you can look back at a wide range of orders. I actually did this. I scrolled back through all of his orders to get a sense of how he played at certain points in the game, and from that I got a read of what he could possibly do next. Turkey hasn't taken too many risks, and he's also played fairly defensively. So here, by winning Serbia, I freed up a space to build another navy, and I was a little concerned that he was going to target my fleets and again neuter me in the Med by popping them, so I dodged a big bullet here. And in his shoes, I think I certainly would have focused on getting rid of those units, and that would limit me to the mainland and also prevent me from holding Italy. Winter 1915. I finally secured my position. I get another fleet down so I can test the Med, and the peace with England is holding. I'm at 15 units, which should cause some real alarm on the board, but England, it seems very determined to take Portugal and Spain back. And I think the conflict in St. Petersburg helped to keep tensions high with Turkey, so I do like seeing Turkey having to disband here, because once you get in that disband cycle, that becomes a problem. On to spring 1916. Again, my focus is on eliminating Turkish units. I take out the army in Greece, which sets me up to take Bulgaria down the line, and I also managed to win my way into Moscow, finally. That's a 2-on-2, so I know I've got that build secured now. England wants to support into Spain, so I gladly give it, and at this point, anything that he is asking for, I'm giving him, and he continues to ask, will you support me here, will you support me there, and his wish is my command. We move to fall 1916. You probably notice that I often anticipate where the main attack will be coming against me, and then I give that space up in order to win another tactically advantageous location, or I just cut my losses and make sure I don't lose units in that battle, hoping I can reclaim it later. So there's nothing here I can do to hold Rome. Italy's too hard for me to hold when he's got such a strong navy, so I need to make my gains inland. Winter 1916. Turkey suffers some losses to both England and I now, but he's going to fight it out until the end and keep his hopes up that England clobbers me. Spring 1917. I predict accurately here that he's going to go for Bulgaria, and so I take the chance to eliminate the army in Romania. That's devastating with Warsaw following up into Ukraine. I can take back Greece as well, and I think England's decided that this is a good place to end the game, with him still alive and also poised to enter the end game with more centers than Turkey. Sometimes players are used to this way of playing the game where you just want to sort of look bigger than someone you've been battling against. So he should definitely have hit me now in order to take me down and stave off the win. But sometimes when you play a game for months on end, as we did with this one, this played out over 2 or 3 months, one turn a day, you also get tired of inputting your moves every day, especially if a win seems out of reach. And I don't think a win was out of reach for England here, but let me know what you think if you got a chance to watch my other video on that question. So move to fall 1917. In fall of 1917, I managed to hold Greece. I take Sev, I eliminate another unit in Nap, and England miraculously vacates Brest for me. I can't take any credit for that. He did that on his own. I wasn't asking for that. I said whenever he wants it, it's his, and he decided it might be time to put this game to bed, so I got a little bit lucky. I think England was waiting to see which of myself or Turkey was going to take the lead, and then he was going to throw in with that person. So winter 1917, it's enough to get the solo here. I've got 19 centers. Turkey was a very strong opponent, but with some good fortune, tireless diplomatic work, and some solid tactics, I was finally able to get the solo with Austria. It's been a long time coming for me. It was nice to see that one of the 2 loyalists got the win, but it really could have gone any of 3 ways there. If you haven't seen Tanya's video on how to win as Austria, I'll link to it right now. And if you got value from this video, please stab the like button to encourage me to make more. Thanks so much for your time.